Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
As the iRacing Israel League continues to trek across the globe, they find themselves today in the land of Samba at one of the greatest racing venues in the Southern Hemisphere, Brazil's Interlagos circuit. An undulating track that wraps in on itself, Interlagos has gained a reputation for trickiness and close racing that ensures a fantastic battle is in the cards for our drivers. Hello everyone and welcome to Season 10 of the iRacing Israel League, brought to you here live on Apex Racing TV. My name is DJ Clark, joined in the commentary booth by Dane Baird with our director and producer Luis Araya working behind the scenes. And Dane, GT3s at Interlagos, I know we're supposed to be unbiased when we come to commentary, but this has got to be one of the best combinations I can think of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much as good as it gets, really. Interlagos, a circuit that we know produces fantastic racing. GT3 cars, we know produce fantastic racing, so you put them together and you give them the group of drivers that we've got here in the iRacing Israel League as well, who are never shy, never want to back away from a battle. We are going to have some fantastic racing here today, that's for sure.
Yeah, we certainly are. And let's go ahead and bring you through the championship standings for this series. As we mentioned, you can see there sitting at the top of the charts is John Chico. He's got a pretty healthy margin up at the front of the field, but a close battle starting to form itself up there between Nadav Yaron and Ran Tassoni. That is one to definitely keep an eye on. Yossi Gabay sitting there in fourth with Tal Stern. Ben Yosef there back in fifth place. Arnon Levi, Bertie Galili, and Tomer Ventura actually tied on points there with Dror Last and Yarmakov looking in on the battle as well. So this championship continues to heat up here, but as we've seen the last couple of times, when you're able to make a lot of passes around here, drivers are not shy about getting their elbows out, having a little bit of fun when it comes to bringing everything out on the circuit, and I think this is going to be a good one. But certainly here, qualifying is going to be of importance to these drivers. It is currently underway right now, and it is Nadav Yaron that leads the charts there. You can see him on your screen with the time of 1:33.98. That is going to be his qualifying done. It does look like here that unfortunately we don't have John Chico, so that may change a little bit of things up at the top of the field.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously having a fantastic opening, a couple of rounds of the season. So, yeah, unfortunately, we are missing from this round. Hopefully, he will be back in a couple of weeks' time when we move to the next round. But let's have a look and see what a lap in GT3 car, specifically the BMW M4 GT3, looks like here at Interlagos.
We've got this long run down the curving front straightaway here, and then the dive down into the Senna S. Certainly one of the premier overtaking opportunities. You noticed a little bit of rotation there in the middle of the car. Not entirely surprising, the camber of the track and the way it breaks away from you. Very easy to lose a little bit of grip. We now bring our way onto the Retro Aposta, down here into Descida do Lago, a very tricky corner that sometimes we can see some drivers being a little bit aggressive and using that full amount of paved runoff on the outside.
Yep, and then through up the hill now. Very easy to have some incidents heading into this part of the circuit where it sort of narrows up a little bit, and the drivers, especially on the first couple of laps, might be heading 2-3 wide through this area, but up the hill, over the crest, and then back onto the brakes again. You can cut a lot of this right-hander, as you'll see that Toma do now, just because there's no track limits on the inside of that corner. You can really get over it and over the curbs. Then a couple of hairpins in the middle sector before we open back up into the very quick final few corners. You'll see here the left-hander, tricky one to get right. It does tend to still understeer into your car, especially later on into a race run. And then the final corner, probably the most important exit of any corner on the circuit.
Yeah, very much so, as you need to be able to get as much speed as possible here down past Subiristos boxes and on to this main straightaway. And you mentioned those hairpins in the middle of the lap. It's really a tale of two circuits around this track, as the first and third sector are very fast. Lots of room for overtaking, lots of room for drafting to be able to try to get those paths to play. And then once we come down into that middle sector, it's a little bit of follow the leader. There's not a lot of room to overtake, and you've really just got to be careful and follow those drivers behind.
That's definitely one of the corners where you want to watch out for your track limits. Of course, they do have incident limits monitored by the simulator itself, so going off track here especially, that's going to get you an off track. It's a very easy place there at the bottom of the hill at turn 4, where you can pick up those 1Xs time and time again. And if you keep picking those up during the races, you're going to get a penalty, drive through, or even a disqualification if it gets too bad. And you've got to take into account that any little contact as well is going to add a couple points onto that as well.
Yeah, it certainly will, and so drivers are going to have to watch out for that. But right now, it's time to go racing for the first of our 2 races here tonight. We will start off here in this first race, and then the top 10 will invert for our second race of the night. But it's going to be Nadav Yaron taking pole position now that John Chico is not here. Michael Sherlin going to be lining up to his outside. Then it is Avram Papashato and Rand Sony, followed by Yossi Gabe and Yuda Ben Yosef. Then Reem Gross and Tal Stern, followed by Bertie Galili and Aiden Shear to round out your top 10. Mark Zubarev will line up in 11th, followed by Tomer Ventura. Then it's going to be Offer Mazus and Dror last. A new name, Benny Sorik, is going to be lining up in 15th, followed by Arnon Levi. And then Amir Hased rounds out this 17-car grid. And we've said it many times here. We always talk about the opening lap, getting the jitters out of the way and not making contact. But Dane, coming down here into the Senna S, very big flashpoint for these drivers.
Yeah, it's down a hill into the braking zone, which is always not helpful at the first start of a race, because you've got to slow the car down. Just that little bit extra gravity working against you in that respect. And then you've also got the track tightens up a lot for the first apex. There's left, right, left, so you're going 3 changes of direction, sorry. So the drivers are going to have to be really aware of what's going on around them, and especially when it's so wide heading into the section. 3 wide is very easy to go into this corner complex at the start of a race. Not so easy to come out of it that way, though.
Yeah, certainly isn't, as now we get going here, taking a look back through the field, as it has been for a lot of it. BMW seeming to be one of the more popular makes of car here, and that's partially due to the front engine design of that car, a lot more stable, a little bit understeery, it has to be said, but you know what the car is going to do, and indeed it really kind of allows you to chuck it into the corner a little bit more. So a lot of drivers favoring that BMW layout here, but a couple of smatterings up through the field. Obviously, a Ferrari there up at the front. You see the Mercedes and the flame-spitting McLaren there in the back. Two of them, actually, on the day. Looks like Sorek has gone with the McLaren, has gone with the Porsche. The 959 of Amir has said in one of the Audis out there, and it looks like Dror Last is going to be in that other McLaren. So a good mix of models here. Always love to see that on a circuit that is as different as this is. You're going to see the strengths and weaknesses of those cars really come out to play. But right now, Michael Scherling backing up the field here a little bit, waiting for Nadav Yaron to take that pole position, giving plenty of breathing room between themselves and the Porsche pace car that will lead us here. An early pit entrance here. You don't have to worry about it if you are a driver, as these are going to be sprint races, but a very, very tricky pit lane to come down in. As there you see coming around the Porsche pace car, going to peel off down pit lane, giving control of the field over to Nadav Yaron, as there goes the green, and we are racing here in Brazil. It's a brilliant getaway there from Papachotto. He's immediately going to be challenging Scherling coming down to the inside of turn one. It looks like that Ferrari's going to be able to hold it out. The first couple of rows of cars through nice and cleanly. Little bit of a shove there from behind as Rantasoni tried to be able to get his way forward, but it looks like the field is through the center S nice and cleanly.
Yeah, actually quite surprised that they managed to do it as cleanly as they did. So really good start from them. They almost all single file as they make their way down towards turn 4 for the first time. We'll see now as the field will start to bunch up in the second sector if we see anyone go for a couple of lunges down the inside maybe.
Yep, here it is, down the Retro Aposta, going down and into the corner, looking at the lunges right now. It looks like our top three are staying in line here at this point. Michael Scherling kind of doing what we suspected in this second sector, running in single file order. We take a look back in the field here. Here's Yuda Ben Yosef, as well as Aiden Shear trying to work their way forward. Not a whole lot of changes here in the field. Our biggest mover thus far is Benny Sorek, who is up 3. Aiden Shear down 1, losing a position to that McLaren of Mark Zubarev in front of him.
Always love following the McLaren around the circuit just with the flames that get spit out the back of it. It can get a little bit distracting though, so some drivers maybe wanting to get past it as quickly as possible. The Porsche drivers here in the number 73 under a little bit of pressure from the Mercedes behind. A couple of cars that aren't as popular in this group of drivers, but still making a nice show of things as they are just outside of the top 10 as it stands at the moment, as the leaders cross the line to start lap number 2.
Yeah, they're going to come across the line here. Looks like lap times are going to be about in the 138s or so. Zubarev taking a little bit of a look down to the inside of Bertie Galili, forcing Galili to go wide down into the center S's. He's going to have to go the long way around here, will Mark Zubarev, but the Rafa Media driver is going to be able to get that move, and look at that from behind. Aiden Shear also being able to take advantage, and that's what can happen if you get put offline down through the center S. But now here comes Shear, making a look down to the inside of the McLaren, late on the binders, and that's going to be a little bit of a crossover there for Mark Zubarev as Shear runs wide.
Yep, definitely the opportunity for that. A lot of these corners where you can overtake is if you do get it slightly wrong and you get put onto the outside line, especially for that third corner, the long left-hander at the end of the center S. Yeah, it can be a very bad place to be, especially when you're all tight and in a big group like they are at the moment at the beginning of these races.
Yeah, it can be very, very tricky indeed, as now we work our way here, working on about minute 3 on lap 2 right now. Bertie Galili trying to find a little bit of room to be able to move his way by. We're going to jump you up to the front of the field where a battle's starting to develop. Nadav Yaron goes wide there through the junction, opening the door for Avram Papachotto, and that's also going to be Michael Scherling that takes advantage.
And that's not all either, because as we said earlier on in qualifying, it is the most important exit on the entire circuit, and this is why you make a slight error there. You don't carry enough speed, and you're going to get passed by not 1, not 2, but 3 drivers. Sione now up the inside and towards turn number 1, gets it fully alongside. They're going to go side by side through this turns 1, 2, and 3 complex. Are they going to keep it clean? Yes, they do. Just about a little bit of contact, and looks like Jerome's going to miss out on a lot more places.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was contact or maybe just a little bit of oversteer there from Nadav Yaron, but he is now going to be back down into 6th place position with Reem Gross and Yossi Gabe able to get by that machine. Rantasoni, though, doing a great job to be able to keep his way up in contention, up 1 position on the day. Papachotto in that Ferrari continues to lead right now. Michael Scherling trying to close in behind him, looking like a little bit of a breakaway here for the top 3 as Reem Gross tries to close down in 4th.
We're here up at the very top of things. It is Ferrari versus BMW, and they're so close between the two drivers, less than half a car length between them as they make their way through these hairpins. It does bunch up the field quite a bit, looking left, looking right, trying to find some space, trying not to slam into the back of that 488 there is Shirley. Get it slightly wrong on the brakes there, and has lost a bit of time to the Ferrari in front. Not the place you want to be doing that, because yeah, you've got that really good overtaking opportunity coming up in a second, and not only have you lost time to the driver in front, you've lost time to the driver behind and put yourself under a little bit more pressure there.
Yeah, the number 20 of Rantasoni certainly smells a little bit of blood in the water as he tries to push his way ahead. They run 1-2-3, continuing about a 2-second breakaway from Reem Gross here at this point. Waiting to see. Sherling looks like he's been able to get a little bit of speed going down the main straightaway, as indeed that was Papasciotto going defensive down into the Senna S. Looks like that move's not going to quite happen there. A little bit more side by side farther back in the field as Yuta Ben Yosef is going to be passed by Tal Stern on the pit straight.
Here's a move up the inside. It's Ventura up the inside of the Mercedes driver alongside and gets ahead before they even reach the second apex there. So brilliant move there by Ventura, getting back up a couple of spots there.
Yeah, good move for him to be able to get his way ahead as now they fly down the Retro Oposto, waiting to see how this is going to play out. We watch right now as, ooh, little bit of a bump and bang there as Ofer Massus, I think, got into the back of Tomer Ventura, and that's going to force that number 422 Mercedes out wide. That's going to allow our known Levi and Amir Hasset and indeed Dror Last to be able to make their way forward. 3 wide coming down here into Ferradura, who is going to be the latest of the late breakers. My goodness gracious, how do they keep that together?
That is a question that only the drivers can answer, I think, as they make their way through the hairpins. Still side by side, and oh, the McLaren dropping back a little bit. We'll see what's going on there, and loses the positions back to the BMW and the Mercedes drivers as well. The Audi coming up the inside too, and just like that, went 3 wide, made the move stick, and then lost the positions again. Was there a slowdown involved, perhaps? Well, wonder what happened there.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't see that McLaren necessarily making an error. I wonder if they maybe just picked up a little bit of wheel spin or some off-throttle oversteer to throw them off. But we're going to jump you back up to the front of the field here. This is Tal Stern with Yuta Ben Yosef behind him in that BMW. Closing down here is the 030. Looks like they're going to jump on the brakes a little bit early. Not going to go for the move there. Tal Stern also going to be benefiting here off of that draft from a Nadav Yaron up in front of him. And a little bit of a draft trains starting to form here at this point. Could be a little bit of a problem for some of these drivers.
Yeah, especially if you lose the draft is a big thing. It's very unlikely that you start losing time to the drivers when you're in that really tricky hairpin section where everyone's quite slow. It's not really a place where you can gain and lose that much time, especially not if you're in a train. But if you're a couple seconds back from somebody and they're in a draft train, you're just going to keep losing more and more time to that train, and they're going to go off further and further off into the distance as well. So really want to make sure that you're not taking too much risk when you're making these moves for position, especially not so early on in the race, because you don't want to be losing that pack ahead. Yes, you might gain 1 position, but you've lost the opportunity at 5 more.
Exactly, and it's all about that back and forth. We check now at the front of the field as we said that Reem Gross was losing time. He is not losing time anymore. He is caught up to the back of this field. Rantasoni able to get back by Avram Papasciotto for the lead of the race. The Ferrari driver back down into second now in a little bit of a BMW sandwich between Tassoni and Michael Sherling. They now come through Subidos boxes on to the pit straight here, working their way through. Sherling looks like he's got a little bit of a decent run, but I don't think he's going to be close enough, nor is Papasciotto behind him. They're all going to jump on the binders here down into turn 1, taking a little bit of a look. There is the Ferrari, but that's not going to be enough to be able to send anything around. A little bit of a twitch there and back. I think that was Yossi Gabe picking up a hair of oversteer coming off of the corner. There you see the 60 Ferrari, though, running a little bit wide. These drivers pushing to the absolute limits, trying to extract the most speed they can from these corners.
Oh, a little bit too far over the limit there. And Sioni's going to drop back down into what looks like second place. Now third place is Sherling. Is going to sneak his way past as well as they make their way up the hill, back up towards turns 6 and 7. That's a very easy error to make, slightly too deep on the brakes, and you lose so much time around this circuit if you make one tiny error.
Ooh, and another one there for Sony, almost cutting the corner coming through Esse, but I think he was able to maintain it and not have a slowdown penalty, so that's going to be good news there for that number 20 BMW. As now they come into the duck spill, working their way back down the hill. Again, this interior portion of the track really just kind of looping in on itself a little bit. Looks like farther back in the field, Ben Yosef has been able to get a position on Tal Stern, but we're going to keep our eyes here because this is the battle as now they come through Junction and the draft comes into play once again, and it's all a matter of who got the best run off of the corner.
Making his way down in the draft of the BMW in front, not seeming to close too much to the driver in front, maybe slight damage to the front of the car, maybe some aero damage or something, but a big send up the inside into turn 1, almost tapping the rear bumper. I think maybe there was a tiny bit of contact there into turn 1.
I think there may have been as well, and somehow they're all going to keep it pointed the right way. Looks like a couple of drivers having some problems farther back down in the field. Tal Stern, I think, dropping down as well as Sorek potentially. But again, whoo, side by side here. Tal Stern, this is a great little battle. That is Shear, I believe, that they're going side by side with Stern and Shear here going down the Retro Aposta. It's going to be a battle of the late breakers going down into Descida do Lago, trying to see who's going to be able to do it. Bertie Galili says, I want a little bit of this action as well, as he's going to try to sweep around the outside of Shear and Stern. That's not going to play itself out. Aiden Shear able to get that move done over Tal Stern, but now we've got side by side between Tomer Ventura and Bertie Galili.
It's all kicking off here at about the halfway point of the race, and Mercedes trapped in a huge BMW sandwich. A little bit of contact there as well. They've just about managed to keep it going, as this hairpin section really bunches the cars up, and it can be incredibly easy to accidentally just run into the car in front of you. It takes maybe 5 meters off the braking zone, and then you're into the car in front. Oh!
That is Aiden Shear. I'm not sure what happened there. The car suddenly spearing off to the right-hand side of the track. It looks like some sort of trouble there as a big look down to the inside now into Junction for Bertie Galili, trying to absolutely chuck that BMW down in there. And I'll tell you who is loving to see this battle. That is Mark Zubarev in the 030. That McLaren in the back of your shot. He is going to be like a kid on Christmas morning, able to pick up the pieces of these presents.
Yep, just outside of the top 10 on board with the McLaren now through the Senna S. And what's always great when you're riding on board with the drivers, you can see the driver in front, if they get slightly tight in towards the corner or get slightly loose, you can see that. And you see the drivers trying to set up the exit as well as possible to try and gain an advantage there, because you're not going to gain a massive amount inside the corners or in the braking zones. It's all about the exits at circuits like this where you really find time.
Yeah, you're very, very true, and you've also got to position yourself a little bit coming into the corner as well, as we saw Bertie Galili do going down into Descida do Lago, just positioning that car maybe a half a lane off of the standard racing line, trying to prevent any sort of overtake that would happen. We watch Tomer Ventura right now able to come down through this sequence of hairpins. Almost contact there behind. Bertie Galili looking very, very hungry to try to move his way forward. But as of right now, it's going to stay Stern, Ventura, Galili, and Zubarev as they come through the duck spill.
So close as they make their way into this last real braking zone of the circuit. I can't really say last corner because there's about 3 left kinks before you reach the start-finish line, but very close is the McLaren of Zubarev to Galili just in front. You can see they're extremely close. You can barely see the McLaren in the silhouette of the BMW blocking him. What's happened to Rancioni? It looks like he's dropping back a little bit further up the field, dropped back a couple places.
Looks like we're going to check out a replay here of exactly what happened to the number 20 machine. Big look down into the inside of the Senna S. It just outbrakes himself a little bit. And, contact there. I believe that was Reem Gross in the number 44 that outbraked himself, and that just put him right into the side of the number 20.
Yeah, very similar to what we saw a couple times in actually F1 last year at Interlagos, where too wide into the second corner often results in the car on the inside clipping the rear of the car on the outside at that part of the circuit. But it looks like they'll be able to carry on. Lost a bit of time, maybe a little bit of damage to the car, but not too bad in the grand scheme of things. Could have been a lot worse, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've seen some pretty spectacular incidents there coming down into the Senna S, but back up at the front of the field after all of that scuffling, it's turned into a two-car breakaway here for Avaram Papasciotto and Michael Sherling as they try to go away, but that's not going to help Michael Sherling as he gets it a little bit wrong coming off of Junction, the rear end of that BMW stepping out pretty massively.
Gaining in the draft for the Ferrari in front. Doesn't punch quite as big of a hole as the BMWs do. The BMWs always seem to be the largest cars in any class and a little bit deep into the braking zone, which means this line for turn 2 is massively compromised. Sherling has a huge advantage here, making his way down through turn 3 as well. Good opportunity for a move for the lead into turn 4.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic run here for the number 200. He's going to tuck behind in the draft. Now pokes his nose to the inside of the Ferrari. He's got to be later on the binders. It looks like he wasn't nearly as aggressive there on the brakes as Avaram Papasciotto. And Papasciotto in the number 60 Ferrari will be able to hold on to it here for the time being as they make their way back up the hill through Ferradura. And it looks like Papasciotto is able to breathe easier for the moment.
Definitely added pressure, though, heading into these last few minutes of this first race of the evening as well. But a brilliant position for both of these drivers to be in. Sherling right where he would want to be, right on the back of the leader. Papasciotto leading, of course, has that extra advantage of already being in front. Defending is probably quite a bit easier than attacking, but you got to make sure that you are pixel perfect with your braking points. Not making any of those small mistakes. Nothing like it this time. Good run out of the final corner.
Yeah, very much so. Sherling, it does look like he's losing just a hair of time to Papasciotto, and I don't think he's going to be in position here to really make a run down into the Senna S. We look a little farther back down in the field. This is Reem Gross and Yossi Gabay. Gabay in that number 17 machine looking to what will be the outside of the first corner. That's not going to play itself out. He's going to have to fall back into line here, see what he's able to do. Twitch of direction there for Reem Gross as now they push their way through the Curva du Sol, trying to see what is able to play out here at this point. Gabay closing in. This may be a little bit of a run for the number 17. Going defensive is Reem Gross down to the inside of the Descida do Lago, and it looks like he's going to be able to hold that position for now. Runs a little bit wide, but nothing to worry about from behind for the moment.
Just a couple minutes left in this first race then, and things starting to spread out ever so slightly as the drivers, only a couple drivers even within a second of each other out there on the circuit now. There's a couple of incidents there, a couple of drivers losing a bit of time, a couple of mistakes being made, and it's caused the field to spread out a little bit, but we do still have a couple battles right up at the front of the field here, looking at Reem Gross, and just holding on to that third place for now. It's not a position that seems to be under too much threat immediately, at least.
No, not for the moment, but as we close down in what I believe is going to be the last 2 laps of the race, if my math is correct, and never trust a commentator's math as our usual disclaimer goes out, we'll have to see. I think this may be a little bit of a push here for Yossi Gabay to try to get this move on, as indeed he got a great run here out of Junction, and Yossi's now going to try to look to what I'd imagine is going to be the inside, going down into turn 1, tries to get on the binders there, forced his nose down to the inside, but Reem Gross shuts the door in that number 44, closes off any sort of attack, and now they're going to have to work their way back down the Retro Aposta and see what can happen. We take a look back at the lead of the race as the gap between Papasciotto and Sherling has come down to 0.3 of a second, but it doesn't look like here at this point that Michael Sherling has got the legs to be able to send the move on that Ferrari.
Not quite close enough just yet. Very, very close. Maybe a little bit deep for the Ferrari through the right-hander. And are we going to see a lunge up the inside? The door is shut immediately from the Ferrari driver here in this number 60 machine. Looking back at Michael Sherling, of course.
As we jump back here, this is Amir Hassed in the 959. This was just a few moments ago coming down through that same area of track that you saw.
Ooh.
Oh, just a slow, lazy spin there. The rear refusing to comply in that Audi, and that's going to send him off and around and into the grass. Now we check back in on the battle for the lead as drivers should be coming to the white flag here. My math was actually correct. Score that one up to the American education system of my ability to do math there as they come across the line. Papasciotto going to be taking the white flag here from Barney the flagman, and for Michael Scherling, it is one more lap to try to get the attack. He's not close enough going down into turn one, but there is a battle here going on between Gross and Gabay. That's Gabay to the outside, trying to really take a late apex there down into the first corner, maximize speed on corner exit like you talked about a little bit earlier, Dane. It doesn't look like he was close enough to make it work down into 1 and 2, but maybe he can get a run here coming down into turn 4.
Yep, trying to get a run, but you're sort of willing yourself to close in on the car in front, but not quite going to happen this time. A little bit deep. This could be an opportunity here. Massively deep, I should say, as he runs all sorts of wide. Gross in front here. And Gabai's going to be looking at that thinking, oh, maybe he should be dropping back ever so slightly. There's no slowdown penalty out there, but there are a couple of incident points, but it doesn't seem like that's bothering Reem too much.
No, I think Reem's going to be able to hold that out as now they come down here into Piraheno, working their way back up the hill towards the Duckspill. As there you can see them, that's Nadav Yaron there in that other BMW in the background. The leaders have absolutely scampered away from this battle with Papasciotto and Scherling about 5 seconds up the road from this. As it looks like here, Yossi Gabay still a little bit too far behind. We've got to take a look back at the leaders, though, because that was a bobble from Avaram Papasciotto coming out of the junction. Good, that set up a run here for Michael Scherling in the 200 BMW. He's going to be in the draft right now as they come down through this curving area, looking down to the inside. That's going to be Papasciotto closing the door. Is he going to be able to hold it to the line? Yes, he is, by 81 thousandths of a second. Papasciotto takes victory over Scherling. Behind them, it looks like Reem Gross is going to be able to hold on for that final podium position. Yossi Gabay and Nadav Yaron rounding out your top 5.
What a finish there. That was so close for Shelly to be able to make that run. Just didn't work out in time for him. A couple of other drivers fairly close as they come towards the end of the line as well. But a brilliant finish us off for the first race. And we're looking forward to seeing what the drivers will do for their second one. Tal Stern making his way to the pit lane. Oh, is that a last lap penalty?
If that's a last lap penalty, he's not able to serve it on the last lap, and he will be demoted down through the field. We'll know that when we get the unofficial results that come across here. The last driver to finish, Benny Sorik in the number 73, the lone Porsche in the field as he crosses over the line. Well, folks, if you thought that racing action was good, keep tuned because we've got one more race coming at you, and with the invert of the top 10, it's going to make things very interesting. As there you see the starting order for race number 2. It'll be Bertie Galili in pole position, followed by the McLaren of Mark Zubarev, then Tomer Ventura and Yuta Ben Yosef. Rantasoni and Nadav Yaron make up row 3, followed by Yossi Gabay and Reem Gross. Michael Scherling and Avaram Papasciotto going to be lining up in row 5. Behind them, it's Aiden Scher and Arnon Levi. Then it's off from Azus and Dror last. Benny Sorik, Tal Stern, and Amir Hased rounding out your 17-car grid. And Dane, that first race, absolutely nip and tuck, very close for all of these drivers. I'm just excited that we get to have one more crack at the apple, and then we're going to see some more good racing action.
Yeah, and we saw a really clean turn 1 at the first race as well, so hopefully we can see more of the same from the drivers on that part as well. So that would be a really good way of starting off this Interlagos second race. First race, fantastic. Hopefully they don't spread out as much for this next one. We've got the mistakes out of the way now, and we can have some much more interesting big pack racing. It's always fun to see.
Yeah, indeed it is. That is certainly really the way to go. Those big draft trains that we talked about, so usual to see here at Interlagos. We take a look there farther back in the field as the last couple of drivers work their way down through the Duckspill and around through Magulio, trying to see what they are able to do. Zubarev here lining up in P2 in that McLaren. That's going to be pretty good. The McLaren known as being a pretty speedy car, pretty quick in a straight line, although it but is a little bit difficult to control, so maybe watch out for him a little bit through that middle section. I've got to think if I'm one of those BMW drivers behind him, that could be a good area to potentially get an overtake done. Well, right now, as they come through the junction, the field's going to start to form up here behind Bertie Galili in the number 420 BMW as they start to line their way onto the main straightaway. Zubarev there, a little overeager maybe, as he tries to keep up behind the pace car. There is Nadav Yaron hoping for another good race here for them. We'll have to see if the fireworks continue between Reem Gross and Tomer Ventura. That's going to be one that I'm going to have my eye on. But as of right now, there's the flames spitting out of the back of that McLaren as it does look like Galili's starting to pull his way up alongside as we look towards the flag stand and Barney the flag man waiting for that signal as there goes the green and we are racing once again here in Brazil. A little bit more of a jumbled up start this time around. Looks like a big move down to the inside coming into the first corner. A little bit of contact, almost a spin there from one of the BMWs as it looks like the first couple of rows aren't able to get through cleanly. Zubarev, a big loser there. He's going to be down a couple of positions as cars are able to fan their way out through the Curva do Sol, and now they work their way onto the Retro Oposto. Textbook start here from Tomer Ventura, but the rest of the field not so lucky.
Almost side by side here for second place as well. Galili just about doing enough to hold on to that one. Has a little bit of smoke in the air, it looked like there for a second, and fortunately Galili couldn't get the power down cleanly and down to third position at the moment. But these four BMWs, they're side by side further back as well. Still plenty of swapping and changing to do in the rest of this first lap as we enter the hairpin section for the first time.
Enter into that hairpin section, and this is where the field is going to start to just kind of lean its way out a little bit. We follow Bertie Galili running in fourth right now, has about a 0.7 of a second gap up to Reem Gross in front of him to try to see if he's able to maneuver that around. Looks like a little bit of a breakaway forming farther back down in the field between 6th and 7th. That's Sherling and Schur there as they go. That's going to be about a 6.5 second gap, but this top 6 right now running very, very close. We're going to take a look here. Something happened at the start to Ofer Mazus. It looks like there's a lot of smoke in front of him. Oh, my goodness. That was a Mercedes spun around.
Oh, and the Ferrari of Papachado as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Let's take another look as it looks like this is starting it. Oh, Zubarev.
Oh, it's a lot of cars. Oh, that's a lot of cars.
Yes, it is, and this is officially taken out. Zubarev, Ben Yosef, Yaron, Papachado, and Benny Sorik, it looks like all involved in this. A lot of our front runners finding themselves pointed the wrong way here early on.
Absolute carnage.
Yeah, absolute carnage there as we focus.
Yeah, 5 drivers.
Yeah, that's going to be 5 drivers out of it. 6, it looks like, as Tal Stern is also being listed as out of this race. But that's certainly going to set things around. We follow here Bertie Galili as a gap has started to form between himself and Reem Gross. Galili now trying to hold off Gabay and Sherling.
Well, they're having their own scrap as well as they make their way through into the third sector as well. The 2 BMW drivers here. Sherling just following along in 5th position now, and well, with the only person able to keep him behind last race now out of the race as he moves up into 4th position. Reem Gross having a bit of a moment a little bit further in front. Now he's only got 3 drivers in front of him that separate him from that victory that he very nearly had in race number 1.
Yeah, very nearly had. We check out a replay here of Reem Gross. Let's take a look. Too much speed down into the corner, and that's going to loop the 44 right around, and he has got to hold and wait for the rest of the field to be able to get their way on by him. Is certainly not the position he would want to be in, as he's got to not have an unsafe release, and did a good job of waiting for everybody to get on through, but that has got to be heartbreaking for the 44.
It's terrible. The thing you want to do most is just light up the rear tires, spin around and get back on the circuit, but you've got a whole train of cars coming past you. You've got to wait for them. Yeah, the last thing anybody wants is a car to rejoin the circuit straight into the path of oncoming traffic, but still has a lot of time left in this race to try and gain up some of those positions. Obviously doing quite well in the opening few minutes of this race. Hopefully he'll be able to make his way back through the field a little bit. Looks like all the drivers that were involved in that lap 1 incident as well have taken their faster pairs and are rejoining the race, which is great to see.
Yeah, it certainly is. We love to see as many drivers as we can out on track here at this point. That is certainly what we want to have happen here as we take a look at another replay here. This is going to be Tomer Ventura coming out of Descida do Lago up the hill here into Ferradura. Just pulled it off and parked it. I wonder if he had some suspension damage or something like that that we just couldn't see.
Yep, and very odd one there, yeah. It's still in towing back to the pit lane, so we'll wait to see if we do get a rejoin into the action from Tomer there. But very odd situation for him to be in. But now Rancioni has inherited the race lead with quite a healthy gap to second position as well.
Yeah, quite healthy, about 5.5 seconds. That's going to be good news there for him as we focus on Ran right now. And this really changes the complexion of the race. But I'll tell you what doesn't change it. That's going to be the battle here between Aiden Schur and Arnon Levi coming down to the corner, the battle of the BMWs. It looks like Schur is going to be able to hold the advantage, tries to pinch down a little bit there on the exit of the Senna S, and he's going to be successful to keep Levi behind him here for this moment. But is Levi going to be able to do anything coming down the Retro Posta, maybe picking up a little bit of speed in that draft?
There's still plenty of time to make this move, and all the while that they battle, they let the drivers ahead gain an advantage on them and gain further track position up the road. So you've got to be careful about picking their battles early on in this race. One of the Audi drivers in the 969, Amir has said in 9th position, just inside of the top 10, only about 0.5 of a second back now from the driver in front in the BMW, and just entering the hairpin section here now, trying to make something happen. That Audi, not the easiest car to wheel around this circuit.
No, it certainly isn't. And, you know, we talked a little bit earlier about the BMW, the front-wheel drive on it. As we take a look at a replay here, this is Benny Sorick and another car that's pretty difficult to control around this section, the rear-engined Porsche. Is there just a little bit too much speed through the corners, and that rear end doing what it does sometimes, acting like a pendulum and flying out over high-speed corners. And it looks like that's going to be a tow back down into pit lane there for Sorick. But to the point about this Audi, Ooh, that is one of the BMWs. Is that Ben Yosef potentially that was off? Maybe just letting the leaders go. We jump back to take a look at the replay. Yes, it was Yuta Ben Yosef here in the number 10. This is coming down into the junction, the same place that we saw the little bit of an issue occur.
Oh,
just ran wide. That almost looks like a mechanical failure, I have to say.
it is very easy to do that. You get your braking point slightly wrong because of the speed that you have to carry through that corner. You carry slightly too much speed or don't turn in early enough or hit the curb the wrong way, then yeah, you're ending up on that part of the circuit. And that is where it gets a little bit tricky because you've got the leaders coming up behind you. You've got a bit of wall sticking out on the right-hand side. Not really many places you can go very safely.
Yeah, exactly. And so a little bit of a heads up there from them to just be able to kind of recognize that problem and get out of the way. As right now, here they come. Let's see what Reem Gross is going to have on the back here. Now, that is a car that is a lap... No, excuse me, it's not. That's Dror Last in the other McLaren. I saw the spitting fire and thought that was Mark Zubarev, but that is indeed a battle for position as Gross tries to take a little bit of a look here, coming through the duck spill, goes for the over-under. That's not going to play itself out. Well defended there from Dror Last, but we'll have to see how well that McLaren is able to cope down the long straightaway with that big German grill staring in its rear view camera.
Whoa, and almost a little bit closer than that as well. It's maybe a little bit slow to get back on the power was last, and well, now that that's made Gross's job a little bit easier than it otherwise needed to be. And, well, yeah, it didn't handle the big BMW right behind it too well. And that last corner has to try and regain that position on the next time by, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to have to go for it. And look who's now involved in this battle. That's Hased right behind him. Amir able to close in that Audi that we were talking about. And to finish out that point, very similar engine layouts here in the Audi and in the McLaren. They're a mid-engine design, which really helps rotation around the corners, but it also means that it's very easy to over-rotate the car. And when you see that rear end start to break away a little bit, that's certainly one of the hallmarks of that mid-engine design, and that's opposed to the BMW, which is front engine, which means a little bit more understeer, a little bit more predictability.
Yeah, you don't get the understeer that the front engine gives you, but you also don't get the plantedness that having the really heavy rear engine right on top of your rear wheels gives you in the rear engine cars, like the Porsche, where the back end is quite stable unless you get a bit loose, and that's when it starts to have that pendulum effect you were talking about earlier. These cars just rotate, and it can be a little bit of a handful. You see the Lamborghini as well in the same boat, exactly the same chassis, and share most of the same parts really as the Audi, except for the exterior body. But yeah, those mid-engine cars can be quite a handful.
Late on the brakes there, coming into the junction for Amir Hased. That's going to allow him to catch up a little bit to the back of that McLaren for Dror Last. But it looks like Last was able to get a little bit of a better run there out of the corner. He's going to start to pull away a little bit here at this point. This, again, the battle for 8th place. Now we watch. You just heard that big guttural growl of the Mercedes streaking on by. One of my favorite engine noises that iRacing has recreated absolutely perfectly here in the simulator. But over halfway done here in the second race of the day. We check back in on the battle for P6. Arnon Levi and Reem Gross trying to close in behind him down the Retro Aposta.
Yep, trying to stick into the draft, maybe pressure his opponent into some kind of a mistake like he just did to Draw Last a couple of laps ago. We're up the hill now as well. This is one of the more difficult parts of the circuit to follow another driver through, because you've got the fast right-hander. You lose a bit of downforce, of course, in the dirty air of the car in front. But also, it's hard to get followed through here as well as we see what has gone on there as Gross almost just let past there by Levi.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure really what that was. Maybe a little bit of communication behind the scenes. You recognize that Gross was a little bit faster, but not normally something that we see a whole lot here out of the series. Reem Gross, nonetheless, not going to look a gift horse in the mouth here, up 2 positions on the day. He'll inherit P6 right now. Iden Shearer up ahead. That is a big off for the number 2 driver coming out of the junction. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, Dane. So easy to pick up just that little bit of understeer and run wide through that corner.
So easy indeed. And well, Reem Gross, after not the best starts to his race, has managed to claw his way back up through the field quite nicely. We're still quite a few minutes left in this race. Let's see a little replay of what's happened here to Yehuda Ben Yosef in that number 10 BMW. A little bit wide through turn 4, but no big dramas there.
Yeah, looks like just a little bit of an off track there, triggering our system, as now we watch on Reem Gross once again, just continuing to push his way along. He's now going to run a little bit wide there, coming through Desida do Lago. As we check back in on the battle for P8, as this continues to be very, very intense right now. Dror Last and Amir Hased running 8th and 9th here, and that gap only separated by a couple of thousandths of a second. This has got a very, very good recipe to turn into a bit of a barn burner here.
Oh, both drivers running a little bit wide through that right-hand hairpin, and now Hased trying not to run into the back of the McLaren in front. It is very enticing too, with the flames sticking out almost tauntingly. It's a little bit close in the braking zone for my liking, following on a little bit, making me nervous. But through the left-hander they go, and now the most important corner on the entire circuit, in my opinion. This left-hander, get a good exit here, and a run into turn 1 is almost guaranteed. Unfortunately for Amir Hased, got a bit of wheel spin there.
Yeah, got a little bit of wheel spin. That's going to put him back a little bit. And it's important to mention that these are cars with traction control, but you've still got to be a little bit careful because that wheel spin can definitely come back to bite you there if you are not careful about it. Now, that is going to give Amir Hasset a little bit more to try to catch up on here as we tick over with about 6.5 minutes left to go in this race. Time's certainly running out. The other thing that he's got to watch out for is if there becomes a pretty fierce battle here between Drawer Last and Amir Hasset, then Offer Zeus could find himself in a little bit of trouble. We're going to give some love, though, up to the leader of the field. We haven't been following him here this much because Rand Tassoni has just been absolutely dominant at the front of this field. A gap of about 3.5 seconds over Michael Scherling. This number 20 BMW just running away with it here.
Yeah, he got given a lead right near the beginning and it's just extended and extended and extended. He hasn't been looking back at all over the last few laps or so. Not too many minutes now, not too many laps for him to complete before the end of this race, trying to hold on. And once again, very similar story to the last race, is in second place, trying to catch up and make it a race win. It's Michael Scherling. He's obviously had exactly the same thing happen to him in race number 1, trying to catch up to the leader by the end of the race. And very nearly got there, as you said, it was less than a tenth of a second between himself and Papachado at the beginning of the first race, at the end of the first race, sorry. We'll see how close he can get by the end of this one.
Yeah, we'll see how close he can get. Here is 4th and 5th place. That was Bertie Galili and now Reem Gross. Remember, we followed him, and look at that gap he has been able to grow here at this point over Arnon Levi as Gross puts in a personal best of the race. Arnon Levi continues to run in 6th place, has a healthy little gap here over Aiden Scher of about 2 seconds here at this point. There is Aiden on your screen right now, and then that is a healthy little gap back to Drawer Last and Offer Zeus. That battle has spread out a little bit more here at this point. And Dane, we're kind of entering into the complete opposite of what we saw in race 1. That was action across the board. Drivers a little bit more calm, a little bit more spread out here at this point.
Yeah, I think that lap 1 incident at the end of the SNS has had something to do with that as well. Took out maybe a third of the drivers on the field as well, and made quite a couple large gaps between the others too. So let's have a replay and see what happened here. That's the over-rotation we were talking about with the Audi.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Just a little bit too much throttle, a little bit too much speed coming down through the corner, and that's going to be enough to be able to throw you around, and that's going to put Amir Hasset now back down in 10th place position. Aiden Scher here starting to look like a little bit of a battle as he closes in on the back of Arnon Levi. That gap coming down under 2 seconds here at this point.
Well, there is our race leader making his way through turn 3, and now a long left-hander. And Scherling, well, he's trying his best, that's for sure, and he will be possibly causing Tassoni a little bit of unrest in the driver's seat of that BMW M4, but probably not quite close enough you'd expect to be able to catch all the way up and try and make a move happen by the end of this race. Not too many laps to go now, so Tassoni should be able to just keep this one nice and clean and make it to the end to take a very well-earned race victory.
Yeah, if he's able to hold on to this here, and if you're a fan of Rand Tassoni, knock on wood, knock on our patented Apex Racing TV block of wood that we keep next to our computers here, that Rand is going to be able to keep going here in that number 20. The gap's starting to come down a little bit more, but I think we're going to be coming to the line here with about 2 laps to go. So I think that's all that Rand needs to be able to hold in here at this point. There you can see over the course of this lap, Sector 3 in particular, it looks like a little bit of a bad run there for Rand, and he's going to lose some time back to Michael Scherling.
Yep, just has to try and keep a cool head heading into the final 2 laps of this race as he comes across the line. Next time by will be the white flag. We'll see Barnett Flagman waving that, and then checker flag, and hopefully for Rand Tassoni, that will be a lovely, well-earned race victory as well. But Scherling closing the gap corner by corner. Every single corner he goes through, that gap goes down. And he'll be liking his chances, I think. He'll be being optimistic.
Yeah, I think he'll be optimistic here as well, and I think both drivers have a real ability to be a little bit optimistic as they run right now. A little bit of an off track, though, there for Michael Sherling coming down through Descida do Lago, and frankly, that may be a little bit of a what we like to call a strategic off track, that some drivers tend to store up those off tracks and use them at the last moments of the race to absolutely push as hard as they can around the circuit. That is not uncommon to see here, and so I wonder if that's exactly what Michael Sherling is doing here at this point, just trying to see if he can use up everything that he can to try to close in.
Of course, mentally it will be difficult for Tierney to see that car closing in as well. If you start to see the driver behind you closing up to you right before the end of the race, which you may well be winning in about a lap's time, it can force some errors to come through from Sione as well. But so far, Sione's doing a brilliant job of it, and we'll have just one lap left to go in this race. Sherling all over the curbs, a little bit squirmy as well, a little bit lighting up the rear tires, but losing a bit of time as well. Sione will find comfort in that.
Yeah, I'm sure he will, as well. As there, the white flag flies for Ransoni. Michael Sherling closing in behind here. The gap now expanding a little bit, upwards of about 3 seconds here at this point. Tassoni holding on to that gap. It looks like on that last lap, Tassoni was a little bit slower, about 0.5 of a second slower, but Sherling just not able to close it down when he needed to be able to do so. No real battles here through the rest of the field as we continue to watch. This is really our closest one, as now it's a matter of just trying to push to the absolute limit. There you see pushing that as much as possible, trying to see what they can go with. Sherling closing down another 0.2 of a second, but I think it's going to be too little too late. I think Ransoni just got to kind of keep on pushing along here, and this could be a race victory for the number 20.
Really can afford to take it slightly easy. Obviously, you don't want to slow down, because that actually makes you more likely to make mistakes. You're not doing what you normally do. The car's not maybe as balanced as it would be at high speed with a bit of downforce, but a few corners left for him to go and a lovely little gap behind them. Looks set for that race victory right now.
Yeah, certainly does, as he now comes down out of the final couple of corners here, coming through the junction, and now it's a long blast of throttle here as he works his way back up the hill, past the Zubidos dos boxes, bringing that number 20 machine to glory here from Interlagos. One more corner to sweep through, absolutely flat out for the number 20, and Rantasoni will take victory here from 5th place on the grid. Michael Sherling will be in P2. We've got to wait a long minute here for Yossi Gabe to be able to come back across the line. He will do so. There you see Avram Papashato. That will be a lap down in 13th place. Our next driver to cross over the line here going to be Bertie Galili.
Couple more drivers crossing the line. As we said earlier, a very separated field here at the moment. We'll see a couple of the lap drivers as well involved in that lap 1 incident, making their way across the line. It was great to see that a couple of them did end up making it to the end of this race as well.
Yeah, good stick-to-itiveness there from all of the drivers, and really appreciate them all getting back out on track and certainly pushing as much as they can. Speaking of a driver who's been pushing and pushing over the limit there, Amir Hassed in the 959 Audi. You can see the damage there on the front of that car as he limps that car around home here. He's going to finish about a minute or so off of your leaders, but still a great, great run there for him as he will come across the line to seal out the top 10. Then it's going to be Tal Stern in that Mercedes. And then we just wait on Nadav Yaron, and it looks like Yuda Ben Yosef for the next drivers to come across. There is Nadav as he comes down through the final couple of corners as Ben Yosef has also crossed over the line. And that is going to conclude the racing action for today. But don't worry, folks, we are very, very fortunate to be joined in the Apex Racing TV commentary booth by your race to victor, Rantasoni. And Ran, that looked like a little bit of a walk in the park for you there in race number 2. Talk me through the victory.
Well, let me assure you, it wasn't. I was sweating bullets. First of all, the first race wasn't going as smoothly as the second one. But in the second one, I kept seeing Sherling in the mirrors and on the relative box. And I kept thinking to myself, I need to push more or I need to save tires. And then he got closer to me and I said, okay, I need to push more. And then the car started getting twitchy and the tires got overheated. So yeah, I kept thinking to myself, am I be able to keep my cool? But eventually I kept my cool and it worked off.
It certainly did work out for you. And are you a driver that pays a lot of attention to that relative box? That's always a question I love to ask in iRacing, is whether you find it helpful to know that driver's coming up behind you, or is it something that you think can throw you off your game a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I think it does throw you out your game because it's a mental game. But it's also a strategy thing because I kept thinking when I saw Sherling made a little mistake in the last turn, I said to myself, okay, I can back off a bit and let's not do any mistakes and just keep it on the black stuff. So yeah.
Well, speaking of keeping things on the black stuff, next time out we head to a track that it is very difficult to be able to do that in the form of Sonoma. How do you like that track? How do you think it's going to go for you?
Well, I haven't been to Sonoma, I think, like in 2 years, so it's really hard for me to say. I know that Interlagos is one of the most suitable tracks for GT3 racing, and I don't know, we're gonna have to get there and then I'll tell you.
All right, well, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks' time about it. But as for today, anybody you'd like to thank for the victory?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody that is taking part in the series and Tal for managing everything. And for you guys, of course, for broadcasting and doing such an amazing job. So thank you guys.
When you put on races like that, it makes it easy, Rand. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, guys.
All right, that was Rand Sony, your victor here today. And now I believe, Dane, you have been able to catch up with P3, Yossi Gabe.
Yeah, Yossi, welcome back to the interview room here. A couple of good races for you, pretty solid results for you at the end of this Interlagos round. I just wanted to quickly ask you, what are your thoughts about the Interlagos circuit in these GT3 cars? It's a really popular car and track combination across all of iRacing, but especially amongst the drivers in this series.
Yeah, I think it was a fun race, although the second race started very badly. But I think that this combination is very good and the races are very tight relatively to other tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And BMW seems to be the car of choice for many of the drivers in the series, including yourself. What's the reasoning behind that? Just any particular reason, or it's just sort of random that you all happen to pick the BMW together?
Yeah, I usually drove the Audi, but in this track the Audi just felt so awful and the tires degradation because of the high temperature was so high, so I couldn't hold the full races when I tried this week, so I decided to switch to the BMW.
It makes quite a lot of sense. We did see a couple of the drivers. I think it was Amir has said that was struggling quite a bit with the Audi around some of the corners, losing the grip. And Interlagos, as you say, a very hot circuit most of the time. It's one of the hottest tracks that you visit, and pretty much anywhere on iRacing. Pretty good results for you today. Looking forward to the next round as well.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah, hopefully I will get up the ladder. And
yeah, looking for some more championship position, that's for sure. Well, Yossi, thank you so much for joining us here in the interview booth, and congratulations on a couple of great results for you here at Interlagos as well. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you. You too.
Well,
that was Yossi Gabe there, your third place finisher. Fantastic stuff. And Dane, that's about going to wrap up our coverage here today on Apex Racing TV, but it has been an absolute pleasure to bring you all of the great racing from the iRacing Israel League. As you heard us say, in 2 weeks' time, that will be February 20th, we will be live from Sonoma Raceway, so you are not going to want to miss that. But in the meantime, on behalf of myself, DJ Clark, Dane Baird, and Luis Araya, until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.